Thank you for joining us for the BRF podcast. We will be releasing content from several classes that were recorded during the Brethren Bible Institute. Brethren Revival Fellowship, BRF, is a concerned movement among the brethren seeking to call the church to stand firm for the authority of the Scriptures and to an emphasis upon the teachings of the New Testament as historically understood by the brethren. We work in the interest of proclaiming and preserving biblical values for living today. Thank you for listening. We hope that this content enriches your spiritual life and inspires you to continue fighting the good fight of faith.
Well, welcome to the Book of Ecclesiastes. Not sure what you all thought about whenever you picked this class. Depending on what frame of mind you're in, you can be in the dumps and stay there, or else just say, well, that's just an amusing an old codger who made some bad choices in life, and I'm not going to do that, so I can just skip that book in the Bible. I'd like for us to be able to find something refreshing, but also find something real out of it. And we can just have a good time of being able to study this short book together and be able to learn some things and perhaps be an encouragement to each other. Let's begin with a word of prayer. Father in heaven, I thank you for the day you've given us, and thank you for your word, and that we have this privilege to study it. I pray that you would give us a fresh anointing here this afternoon and this week as we look into this book of Ecclesiastes. Give us clear understanding and help us particular to have the resolve as the conclusion is for us that we find here. Bless us as we study together, and pray that your Spirit would be in our midst. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, so who wrote Ecclesiastes? Solomon? Well, I got to tell you a little something. This past week, I was working on a house out in Great Falls, Montana, and while I'm working, especially if I'm kind of alone, I like to listen to music. And I had gone to Dollar General, because there's one of those every so often, right? And bought one of those little El Cheapo, Bluetooth speakers, and I could play some different music through my Spotify list piece. And I'm studying for Psalms, and I'm studying for Ecclesiastes, and I like sacred music the most. And there's various forms of sacred music and gospel music, but I like those kind of songs. And I was like, you know what? This just is not fitting with Ecclesiastes. Boy, what is going on with Ecclesiastes? And as I would read over and over the book and just listen to it from time to time. By the way, I would encourage you to take some time in your quiet time just to read through all of Ecclesiastes this week. Okay, it really doesn't take long. Okay, read it, listen to it, through your earbuds, whatever. And I was like, something's different about this book, and it's not fitting with sacred music. What should it be? And I'm there sitting there listening alone and working good and proper, and I said, by the way, Caleb, you probably ought to edit this out. This might get me in trouble if they hear this in the upper echelons. I don't know if he'll do that or not. But so I said, you know what? This Ecclesiastes sounds like 90s country. And so I got my Spotify out there and just did a Google search. I want 90s country. And I found Ecclesiastes. I think maybe George Strait and Reba McEntire wrote some of Ecclesiastes. Or at least their philosophy of song fits, doesn't it? Wow. All the stuff I'm going to try. All that I can do in life and just live it and realize that, and just the list goes on. I'm in a hurry to get things done, rush, life is no fun, and that sounds like it comes out of Ecclesiastes, doesn't it? And wow, the list just kept going on, and after a bit I'm not sure if I should feel depressed about this or not, because they never got to Ecclesiastes 12. So anyway, what does Ecclesiastes 12 say? Written most likely by Solomon. I believe that is true. It's a pretty good conclusion that we can have. But I want us to go to the last chapter of Ecclesiastes. I'm not one that reads the last chapter of a book first. Okay, I'm one of those that I pick up a book and I read it at chapter 1 and go through. Some folks like to pick up the book and read the last chapter first. I'm not normally that type of a person. But I would like for us to look at the ending, because sometimes we can get stuck in the doldrums of the first 11 chapters of Ecclesiastes and not see what it's really all about, okay? We're probably going to spend all of Friday looking at Ecclesiastes 12 and piecing it apart, but I just want you to see the last couple of verses. Ecclesiastes chapter 12, Ecclesiastes chapter 12, and the very end of it, he says this in verse 13. Here's the end of the whole matter. Of all that it's heard, fear God and keep His commandments. This is the whole duty of man, for God will bring every deed into judgment with every secret thing, whether good or evil. And that really sums up all of life. Some people look at Ecclesiastes as being something that you just ignore because it's a message full of doldrums. It's a message that it looks like a man is trying to get through with life without God. That's not what it says. It does not say that he's trying to get through life without God. Solomon would have known who God was. In fact, he had an experience with God that I've never had. I mean, wouldn't you like to have God appear to you in a dream and tell you what your future is? Maybe you have. Anybody have that experience like Solomon did? Boy, I would love to have that type of an experience. But I haven't. So Solomon knew about God, and yes, he walked away from Him, at least for a little while, and lived in disobedience to what God told him specifically to do. And I think he had some regrets of that. But he kind of comes to conclusion in looking for what joy is. Fear God and keep His commandments. And then some of these other things, whether you're rich or poor, doesn't matter. Whether you're of the king's palace or whether you're homeless on the street doesn't matter quite so much. The writer here is asking some very important questions about the meaning of life. And there's going to be some common phrases that, you and I are going to remember. We've heard before and we will hear it again. It's a message that I think should be preached and taught through all of the news organizations. I think the message of Ecclesiastes really ought to get out loudly today. And so, young people especially, this message is for you. I'll say for us because I'm younger than Joe, okay? But if you were to take the moment, and young folks, I would encourage you, if you dare, if you're brave enough, get some of these fellows that have a little bit more gray or less hair than they used to have, and ask them to have lunch with them or a meal with them, and then just say, hey, tell me about life. How was it? What do you see? They're not going to bite. No, they're not, okay? They might have some fascinating stories to be able to tell you. And as I've looked at this passage and tried to figure out what is the best way to teach it, it doesn't really follow any fancy outline that I've been able to find. I've put together some outlines and then I rip them apart and try to work it again and ripping them apart. I couldn't make any system fit for Ecclesiastes. So I've come to the conclusion that we're going to do pretty much an expository look into this short book. Pretty much verse by verse, or maybe take a couple sections at a time. Okay? Is that all right? So that's going to be our game plan for looking through this passage. And I'm going to ask some of you to take turns reading it. We don't know where all Solomon went to in life. We really don't know. Whether he personally went to America or not, maybe. And you want to say, wait a minute, you're kind of off your rocker. Well, there's a place in South Mountain, Pennsylvania, there at the border of Franklin and Adams County, that there's a special dig of some kind of a mine that's there. And I ran across this archaeologist when we lived there about 20 years ago. And he said there's a certain type of mineral that is found here and in Nebraska and nowhere else in the world that we know of. I'm like, okay, cool. No, but you got to understand this. We found this in some tells, in some archaeological digs in Israel. I'm like, you did what? He says, yeah. He said, our belief is that the Phoenicians were the first ones to come up with the flat earthers, with the flat earth idea, because they were involved in global trade. And it was very likely that Solomon, with his marriages and intermarriages with the Phoenicians, or working with them in getting gold and minerals and herbs and strange animals from all over the place, maybe him or some of his servants were on the American soil early on. Cool. Really? Like, I don't know how else to explain it. I'm not sure where that little clip thingy went.
It's over here.
I'm just going to stick it in my pocket. We'll fix it later on. So did Solomon in one of his escapades land in here? I don't know. What all did he see? Because some of the things that he describes in Ecclesiastes or that's found in the book of 2 Kings that talks about some of the animals that he would have experienced, they've never been native to Israel and to that greater Middle East Palestine area. They've not been native there. So where did he bring them in from? Where did all these gifts come from? And so I said it was in Montana last week, and to see the grandeur of some of those mountains. And he talks about some of those great mountains here in Ecclesiastes, and of the streams and of the rivers. There's some fascinating streams and springs out in Montana that you don't find anywhere else. Maybe Solomon had taken a trip to Montana and Wyoming. Okay, maybe he didn't, but he just knew about the grandeur of God and His creation. And have you ever been out to those great big mountains out in the Rockies somewhere, Colorado, wherever, and you look at it and it's just, wow. Yeah. And so if that brings happiness, great, go for it. Go see Him. It brings you to worship. And Solomon says, I've seen all of that. And then what? So let's begin. The words of the preacher, the son of David, king of Jerusalem. That's where we get the idea that is most likely Solomon is the one who is writing here. I meant to bring an object lesson along with me this morning. I didn't. I should have it for me, though, for tomorrow. This idea of vanities. Sometimes we get the idea that this just means that life is just a bunch of boredom, doldrums, just nothing to it, okay? This word of vanities simply means breath or vapor. It's like poof, and it's gone, okay? And so try to remember that when it comes through. Vanity of vanities is not, well, life just sucks and it's just terrible. Blah. That's not what it means, okay? But rather, vapors are just vapors. And whether you're flying or whether you're here on the earth and you see planes fly by and you see the vapor trails that are there, beyond, or you see the fog and the fog rises across the water and then it disappears, where'd it go? That's the vapor. That's what we mean whenever we read vanity of vanities. Breath is a breath. It's just a puff. Done. Gone. Okay? So he begins that. Vanity of vanities, says the preacher, vanity of vanities, all is vanity. All is just simply a puff. It's here and it's gone. It's just, that's all. And so if that's all life is, it's here and then it's gone, what are you going to do with it? What are you going to do with your life? What is the purpose and meaning for your life if it's just here and gone? How many of us have promise of tomorrow? None. There's strange accidents that take place, work-related or traffic-related. There's strange, incurable sicknesses that happen. There's just, the guy just dropped over. Went to sleep and never woke up. And Solomon says, life is just a puff. Gone. And I'm sure that we've all had our experiences with blowing out candles on our birthday cake. And some of us have to blow out more candles than others now, don't they?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Here we go.
Or you just cheat and get the one candle that's in 2 big letters. Or is it 3 letters now?
I only get 27 now.
You only get 27 now, okay. We blow out the candles and you might tell some little toddler, you have to get closer to it. Because that puff of air to it's not the same, is it? And it's just how big of a distance? And that puff of air that is 98 degrees in our mouth, we use to cool something off on our spoon? Because it went from 98.6 degrees to what to cool off that hot spoonful of soup? See, it's just gone. The temperature leaves that quickly. The force of the vapor uses that quickly. And says, look, air puff of an air puff. All is just an air puff. It's just a vapor and it's gone. So what are we going to do with life? And I'd like someone to read the next couple of verses for us. And I don't care who, and it does not matter to me. I'm not going to make a big deal about which version or translation that you might use. But someone read for us then verses 3 through 11. Ecclesiastes 1, verses 3 through 11. So how many of you are still in school, or you just graduated school in recent memory and you loved earth science? Am I the only one? Oh, maybe it's because I taught it. Earth science, to be able to discover the uniquenesses of these oceans and the rivers and the stars and the sky, and you dig into the dirt and here's water and then the water isn't there anymore, and it's a marvel. And so this first section is your section on earth science. And I want you to understand I want you to see some of the stuff that he understood, however many thousand years ago that it was that he lived. Okay? I'm not going to go through all of it, but he's asking the question, I've worked really hard, but what have I gained? Generation comes and generation goes. And yeah, I sit here and stand here, and there's times after teaching for as many years, it's like, I remember whenever you were born. I taught your mother in school. Your mother. Wow. Yeah, I baptized some of your parents, and whoa. And so one generation comes, and it goes, and it keeps coming, and it keeps going, right? And this cycle continues, and it continues, and wow, where's the end of it? Oh, that's right, it always has been. There's nothing new happening. It's just, well, I'm 50 for the first time. I've never been 50 before. Okay? Actually, a little bit beyond that, but it's the first time for that, but I'm not the first person to have reached 50. Joe beat me there. I'm not going to say how many years ago. Okay? But then he says, as I look around and I observe nature, the sun comes up, the sun rises, the sun sets, and yes, you could say, well, if he really understood science, the earth rotates. That's not true. Okay. But from his perspective here on earth, the sun rises, and the sun sets, and the wind blows to the south and from the south, and it blows round and around, and except if you're in Montana, it only blows one way, sideways. But where did it come from? I mean, does God have some giant fan somewhere that's blowing it to keep it going faster in Montana and North Dakota than he does here in Pennsylvania? Where is the origin of wind? And he starts to marvel at that. It's like, I see. And as he looks at more of nature, he says, the streams run into the sea, and it's not full. The longest river in the United States is the Missouri River, and its headwaters are just south of Bozeman, Montana. And it makes its way kind of at a northeastern position, goes up through Great Falls, and there's a place called Giant Springs there that pumps out 156 million gallons plus of fresh water a day into the Missouri River, works its way on up towards almost the Canada border before it twists back around, comes down through the Dakotas and across the Kansas and joins into the Mississippi River. And I look at this huge spring that's just bubbling, trainloads of water every day. And it feeds into Missouri. And I've been down into New Orleans where the Mississippi enters into the ocean. And the ocean doesn't just rise to the top and start going out the overflow spout like it does in a bathtub. Wow, why not? And he's mesmerized by that. See, he looked at nature and was able to worship. And I want you to be able to do that. Just pause long enough that whenever you can get into the outdoors, and there are so many state parks and federal national parks to be able to go to, that just gives you a moment just to sit back and observe nature and just watch them. Just watch it. And whether you're down on the sea level, or whether you're up at almost 11,000 feet elevation at Beartooth Pass, and there's enough ground squirrels and chipmunks there that you can feed them the sunflower seeds out of your hand, and they come up and they start spatting with each other about who's going to get the next seed the whole time. I like sunflower seeds to be able to chew apart and spit out and whatever else I'm traveling. It does something to help keep me awake, and I don't know, I just like sunflower seeds. But man, those little buggers could way out chew me with getting the kernels out. They're slick. How did he learn how to do that? Yeah, and so that takes me to Ecclesiastes. I'd be able to look at it like, wow, this is amazing that God created these little wee tiny creatures to be able to out-chew me on sunflower seeds. Okay. All right, so those are some of the weird thoughts that I have whenever I'm out in nature. I'll just go ahead and say it. You might say you're pretty strange. Okay, fine, I am. The streams run into the sea as I see all of nature, but the sea isn't full. And there's weariness that happens, there's futility, and man can't figure it all out. You don't understand it. You can't explain where all the water comes from. At that Giant Springs, geologists say that it came from about 200 miles south of there, and it takes about 50 years to go through the natural aqueducts, down through all of those mountain pieces before it shoots back up out there. I don't know how they figured that out. And I would be sweating bullets. Yeah, that weariness. I would be sweating bullets trying to get out my calculator and pencil and trying to figure all that calculus out. Okay? But somebody did. And the things that the eye is not satisfied with seeing, the ear is never full with hearing. The Rocky Mountains do not get old to me. The rocky seashore of New England states never gets old to me. All right? It's just a beauty about it that makes you go, wow. And I don't get tired of seeing it. And you go through the the ranches of the west, and you hear some of the cattle lowing, and then you see the antelope, the pronghorns intermingling among them, and then the mule deer, and you just don't get tired of seeing it and don't get tired of those special bird calls. Wow, and it brings us to worship. See, I don't think this is some old geezer that just was tired of life and was trying to write some of his old boring memoirs. He might be old, okay? But he's writing some of his memories and some of the things that he has discovered throughout life. And that's why I say, young folks, get an opportunity if you dare. And talk to some of these folks who you can outrun whenever you're playing ultimate frisbee, okay? Talk to them about some of the things of life. What have they seen? And listen to their stories. There's no new thing under the sun. Well, that's never happened before. Are you sure? We've never had this happen before in America. Are you sure? This is something new. Really? No new thing under the sun. It's just something for us to discover. And it might be something new that we have discovered, but there's no new thing under the sun. There's things that we forget. There's things that we didn't know have been discovered. But there's some things that we will find out later on. Because life is just a puff. I can't comprehend all of it. Okay. Now, I want to pause here for just one moment. Well, first of all, are there any comments on these first couple verses? Because this is kind of the first introduction piece to the whole book. All right. Now I want you to, with your paper and pen, I've got a couple questions for you, and I'd like for you to write some of the answers down, okay? If money were not an issue to you, and there was no limit, you didn't have mom or dad saying, no, you can't do that. There was no conscience against that. There was no limit to funds. You could have whatever funds were necessary to get whatever means that you would have. All right. What would you like to? Where would you like to live? What state or country would you like to live in, or even a city? Go. Money's not an issue. Nobody's going to tell you, no, that's a bad idea. You would just love to go there. Where would you like to live? Secondly, as far as an occupation, what would you like to do? Again, money's not an issue. Joe, you can even go back to college again, okay, and get your PhD. It doesn't really matter. There's no limit to that. What would you like to do? Astrophysicist? You want to be an astronaut? Want to go back to school and learn how to be a farmer? A doctor? What would you like to do? As an occupation. If there were no limits to the amount of work or the job that you'd have, what would be the ideal income that you would like to have for a year? That you would say, yep, if I could make this, I would be satisfied. Whether it's $50,000, $150,000, $1 million. Again, there's no conscience against it. You can have whatever you want. Nobody's going to say you even have to tithe or give portions of it away. This would be what you think would be ideal. Man, it would be ideal if I could have this much money. And no, I'm not going to judge you for it. I promise. Again, if money is not an issue and the place or the location where you live is not an issue, what would you like to have as your favorite pet or your hobby? So whether it's a certain pet that lives in your house or whether it's a hobby. Like I would like to have Ted Turner's bison ranch. I would love to have his bison ranch. I think they're some of the most majestic creatures to be around. I would just love to have his bison ranch. He's dead now. He just died a couple months ago. He doesn't need it anymore. Maybe I could go to some of his heirs or some of his managers and say, I would like to manage your bison ranch that you have, one of the biggest bison ranches around. If that was your opportunity, write it down. That's mine, okay? That's mine. And so, I don't know, maybe you don't like bison, you want alpacas instead. Fine, get alpacas. Or Maine Coon cats. Money, again, is not an issue. What would you like to have as a way of transportation? So this can be whether it's a vet or whether it's a Jaguar or whether you want your own Citation, Gulfstream, whatever else to get you where you want to go. Or, you want that $200 million yacht like that Russian tycoon has. What would you like to have by means of transportation? You can get what you wanted. Okay, now, if you dare, I'd like to hear some of your responses. You don't have to. Again, I promise I won't laugh and make fun of you. I might say, I wish I would have thought about that. I would like that too. Okay. Where would you like to live? Europe? Scotland. Oh, gee, Scotland. Australia. You're going to go down under, eh? Yeah.
County, Virginia.
He just wants a good deal. Virginia, I like it. Iceland, yeah. Guatemala. You want to go to Guatemala?
I go every year.
You go every year. There's some beautiful country in Guatemala, isn't there?
A lot of work to do.
A lot of work to do. Okay. Means of transportation. We're going to see Joe driving around a Tesla that he can just get into, and as long as he has his eyes open, it takes him down into the sticks of West Virginia. Oh, you're going to run out of service.
A nice Chevy truck.
Just a Chevy truck.
Just a Chevy truck.
There you go.
Live where I'm at. A nice Chevy truck.
There you
I
go.
want a garage to go with that. Somewhere to work on it all the time.
Well, man's got to stay busy. I said nice.
He said nice. So in other words, it's still working, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
Sell
yeah.
it when it quits.
Anyone else?
One of those drones you can stand on fire.
A drone, hey, you might live long enough to see it. In fact, with your brains, you might even make one. Yeah. These drones they use for spraying crops these days are incredible. And for search and rescue and the works, wow, that's amazing. So I've flown back and forth to Montana, and Monday Saturday, this past Saturday, 2 days ago, on my way home, I cut the time a little closer than I probably should have to fly out of Bozeman, Montana, to be able to fly home. Now, under normal circumstances, it would have just been fine, but there were hundreds, and I mean hundreds of people standing in line to get to their rental cars, standing in line. You had snake lines in one room that eventually you went out to the snake lines in another room to get through TSA, where they only had 2 TSA agents working you through, okay? Until I got finished, I knew it was cutting it close, and I just grabbed my stuff. I didn't even put my computer in my bag, and I just started running. Thankfully, it's an airport that's smaller than the Harrisburg airport, and you don't have that terribly far to run, but I'm chugging down there, and the door of my gate is closed, and I was about ready to cry. And this lady says, "Are you Wilmer?" I said, "Yes." "Well, we're waiting on you." "Oh, thank you so much." And huffing and puffing, I get there. I would like to have one of those Citations that would land in the little strip in Selinsgrove that's about 30 minutes from my house, and I can jump in that thing and about 3 hours later land right into Great Falls where I need to be at and sit in a nice big cushioned seat while it's gone. I would just think that would be nice to have. Instead of driving the couple hours to one airport and then waiting through TSA and on and on. But if I had all that, would that bring me true happiness? Momentarily. It'd be like one Baptist preacher friend of mine would say, "But Pastor Wilmer, I'm redeeming the time. I'm getting there quickly. I'm redeeming the time." Well, that's a different take on it that I've heard before, because he had an airplane. He would fly wherever he needed to go. Okay. Redeeming the time. Your favorite pet. or hobby ranch? What do you have? I told you mine's bison.
Goat ranch.
Goat ranch, all right. Like the dwarf goat ranch or the meat goat ranch?
Goat.
The meat, all right, good deal. Meat goat ranch.
Horse farm.
A horse farm. What kind?
Any kind.
Any kind, just a horse farm. Got it. Anyone else? Okay, career. You could have your choice of career. What would it be? You could do college all over again, or just start right now, and there's no end. There's some of the things that I would think that would be nice to do, and I was like, well, till I got finished with college, I'd be Joe's age, so I can't do that. But because there's no limitation to it, I'm going to live on into perpetuity, however long I need to go to, and so life after college is not an issue. What would that career be?
Biology.
Okay. Archaeology? A vet? Have you done much digging in your backyard? Do you know Dana Atkinson? So there's an Atkinson family that grew up in McConnellsburg, not far from you. Okay. So Dana is the oldest son, and he's kind of a self-taught archaeologist, and he loves to dig around. He lives up near Lock Haven now, up in that way, and he some of the stuff he comes up with are pretty incredible. He digs up his porch to pour another pad of concrete here just this past year, and he noticed some special holes. So he gets out his grid and he just does his self-taught deal and realizes that here's a tent peg of a certain kind of Indian, and here's where a tent peg was at, and here's another one, here's another one. He figures all this stuff out. And whenever he was about your age, he uncovered a mastodon skeleton over in the mountains of Fulton County. Well, how many mastodons are roaming the United States right now? And some of the trees and the stuff that he found, he was talking to another archaeologist from another state. They said, hey, pick through the manure. Does it look like it has toothpicks? And so you follow after a horse and there's all kinds of fiber still left behind. He said, if it has little toothpicks because they ate this certain kind of a tree, see if it's there. And that tree doesn't grow in Pennsylvania now. And he was able to find all this stuff. And it's like, so hey, just dig around, see what you can find. If you know what you're looking for, it's cool. Great. He goes around and he brings some of his plastic molds of it or around, does different talks from time to time. So that might be an interesting thing to get him to speak at a youth conference or something. It'd be fun. Anyone else?
Nurse missionary.
Full-time nurse missionary. It's part of your heart right now, isn't it? Awesome. All right. Ideal salary. I mean, you could make this. You wouldn't have to worry about anything. I mean, whether you have servants or not, doesn't really matter. Just, what do you think? Well, I don't know. It's your choice. I'm not judging. 500K annually? Okay.
150K.
150K? Good. Anyone else? Joe, you can live life all over again. What will be the ideal salary?
Just enough to live.
Just enough to live. Okay.
I'm at the point where I finally came to the place, okay, where I don't need a whole lot anymore.
Okay.
I don't need another title. I don't need anything else. I'm who I am. I just need enough to live in a little old beagle dog.
Did you write this?
Yeah.
Did you write this book?
No.
No?
I read it a few times.
Well, you came to the same conclusion he did. It sounded like some of the same stuff.
Well, no, really. I've been there a couple of years now.
So if you've met million...
But I went through some medical things where they
Yeah.
kept misdiagnosing me, and last year they finally fixed it.
Yeah.
I had to think of a lot of things. These young people they're not there yet. They're going
Okay.
to have a different view than Grover and I.
Yeah, they will. Yeah, they will. So I've met a number of millionaires before, and some of them are just the next common person as, any one of us, and I mean, they don't live it up, okay? I've also met millionaires that they live it up, all right? And to me, it's not the amount, and it just really is not. And I've met businessmen that said, I've been a millionaire and broke 3 times. I'm like, how do you go broke after you were already a millionaire once? Well, it's just the way the markets turn. Well, sometimes that can happen. How many of you want to be the next person on Shark Tank? See what's going on with that. All right. I ask these questions because the writer of Ecclesiastes experienced pretty much everything that you have answered. He got what he wanted. He had what he wanted. And if he didn't, it was available to him. And if he wanted it, he could get it. And there was no limits to it. It was just there. And what did he find and what did he experience from it? One of the things, what we're going to find is he experienced that it was just, and it was gone. It was all over. He doesn't say it was worthless. It wasn't worthless being an archaeologist. It wasn't worthless being a nurse missionary. It wasn't worthless or wasteful to have a $500K income. It's just, it comes and goes. And just like we can't tell where the waters come from and it gets too full to, this bank account. I made mention of Ted Turner. So as a young boy growing up in Georgia, Ted Turner was the owner of the Atlanta Braves baseball team. And he was also the owner of one of the television networks that were going on. And everybody was just, wow, Ted Turner. Well, he died and left it all behind. Now what? Well, we're going to read about that here real shortly. Now what? So, in this quest to live life to the fullest, let's continue on. Somebody read the next several verses that go to the end of the chapter, verses 12 to 18. Okay, so he recognizes that he was king over Israel, and if this is for sure Solomon, which we're pretty sure that it was, if we were to read through 2 Kings, we would find that kings and queens came from all over the earth to sit at his stool, at his feet, and say, give me wisdom. And he had it, because that's what he had asked for, right? As a young fella, however young, we don't fully know, maybe he's in his 20s, maybe he's in his 30s, the Lord appears to him in a dream and says, whatever you want, I'll give it to you. That was kind of some of my questions, right? What do you want? There'd be no limit to it, right? God says, give whatever you want. He asked for wisdom. Remember that story? And the Queen of Sheba comes and says, wow, the half has not been told of me about all the wisdom and all the knowledge that you have. And he says very plainly, so I applied my heart. I wanted to search it out. If you could know something, I want to know it. He far surpassed Google AI. I mean, maybe he created it. Just ask and he would find it, or he would know someone that would give him the answer. Because there's no new thing under the sun. He had come to that conclusion, right? And I have looked around it, and you know what? To search out all the wisdom and all the knowledge there is, and at the end of verse 13, he says, this is a very sore travail, or it's an unhappy business. Just to seek out knowledge, to become the smartest wing-ding in the earth. It's just like, well, what's up with that? Man, I fried my brain. Sometimes we get finished with calculus class and the student's like, Mr. Horst, my brain just hurts. Can we do something else for a moment? And that's what he's experiencing. I found out all this knowledge. I found out everything man, your brain just hurts. I've seen everything that there is that's done under the sun, and that's all it is. So get all of the knowledge you want to. That's all it amounts to. Have all the money that you want, whether it includes a new car or the old Chevy, or the boat or the citation that flies you. It's all over. That's all it is. Have your boat or not, whatever. The crooked can't be made straight. And if you don't have it, you can't count it. Yeah, that's what that means. Whatever's wanting means you can't have it. You can't count it. Now some of you are like, It's called in the red. It's called a debt. You can count debt. Oh, they didn't have debt in that type of a manner like we do today. But he says, if you don't have it, you can't count it. So how many elephants do you have in your backyard? Well, if it's 0, you can't count it. Okay? And I said, look at all this wisdom I got, and I'm smarter than anybody else. He won whenever it came to America's Got Talent. America's got smarts. The world has smarts. He won. He had it all. He had experienced it. And he's like, you know what? This is crazy. That's what it means when it says this is madness and folly. It's not mad like it's mad. It's like, this is just stupid. This is nuts in today's language. This is crazy. I got all of this, and that's all it amounts to. I started communing. I started saying in my own heart, communing in my heart, striving after the win. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to get her done. And all of this wisdom and all of this knowledge, that's it. So, now how many of you want to be on the next TV show? How many of you want to be the next star in men's basketball, ladies basketball? Well, that's an interesting conversation these days, ladies basketball. Soccer, just finished having the World Cup. Want to be the next star? Well, why not? Well, you're the star for right now, but what about next year? Or 4 years from now, whenever the World Cup comes back around again. Okay? So, it's just a breath. It comes and goes very, very quickly. All right, we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back, and we are going to look at what happens whenever he actually starts to make a list of what he actually gets. Okay? And how that becomes just a puff or a vapor also. So take a quick break, 4 or 5 minutes, and come back and we'll roll on here with chapter 2 and get into maybe some of 3. Chapter 2. Verses 1 to 11 speaks of all of the stuff that he had. I asked some of this to be a question that it's not against conscience, it's not against your New Testament beliefs of how you should or should not live by way of, what is godly stewardship, what is enough, what is not enough. You don't have mom or dad or grandpa or grandma saying, all right, son, that's a little bit extravagant. Okay, there's no limits to that. What would it be? And perhaps we wish that we could have things, just a little bit better than what we do. I wish my house was a little bit newer. I wish my income was a little bit bigger. I wish my car was a little newer, that kind of stuff. We can have those in those moments. So Solomon is writing, and in these next couple of verses, we're going to look at all that he had accumulated for himself because he wanted it. I mean, he could have it. Nothing to tell him, don't. Nothing to tell him, don't. Let's read through this list, verses 1 through 11. And I would like to have someone read verses 1 through 8, because 1 through 8 gives specific lists, and then 9 through 11 kind of sums it up. So 2 people, one of you read verses 1 through 8, we're in chapter 2, and someone else verses 9 through 11. Go. All right. What do you think of this list? If he wanted the comedy show, he went to the comedy show. Okay? If you ever get down to the Pigeon Forge, Tennessee area, they have this thing called the Comedy Barn. And you get in there and it's like, that was funny. And after a bit, it's like, it's all over. It's gone. And it could be any other comedy shows too, by the way. All right. People make all kinds of money on YouTube, just comedy shows, whatever. If he wanted to laugh, he laughed. And he found something to laugh about or to laugh at. And, well, I know what, I'll try this drink or that drink. And it didn't matter what kind of scotch that it was or what kind of a malt liquor or expensive wines. He got it because he could. And after drinking himself drunk, it was like, oh. Wake up the next day, man, my head hurts. Have you ever been around somebody that's been drunk? I don't get it. There's young people today that think that it's cool to drink beer. And have you ever actually been around somebody that's been like stupid drunk, like that doesn't know what's going on? It's not cool. It's not. But he had all that. And then he wakes up and is like, well, that was lame. Okay. Whatever he wanted. Whatever he thought, this was the greatest of things. Works, houses, vineyards, gardens, orchards, fruit trees of whatever he wanted to. You have the privilege of having a 25-acre little farmette here in Pennsylvania somewhere, and you're able to bring in all the exotics. You can even grow your own papayas, and you put your own generators in and greenhouses in so that you can grow your own kiwi and your own bananas and your own avocados. And, oh, man. And then what? Well, after you eat them and you have your friends all over, oh, that was good. That was delicious. Thank you. And a few hours later, you flush the toilet and it's all over with. It's just gone. And you sit down to this nice Texas Roadhouse sirloin or the big porterhouse, and you outdo the dare and you down that 32-ouncer. And it's like, but I did it. Oh, I feel bad for how long. It's all gone. It's all over. Okay, so you get bragging rights that you did it. Okay, well, hats off to you. That's great. Congratulations. Thank you very much. There you go. I got servants. I got tired of working, so I got servants. I got servants that were men. I got servants that were ladies. They did all of my work for me. One of my wake-up calls whenever we moved to Maine in the shed business that I was in was building a really large shed for somebody that I never met. I met her steward and her butler, but I never met the owner. And we went out onto this little island, almost an island, little peninsula out there, where like people go that have money that I'll never have in my lifetime. Beautiful houses, and some of them not so beautiful. I built a shed that I had to double the price for just so that it matched the aesthetics of the rest of the houses around. And most of the time when I talked to this lady, she was in South Africa because she was some for a cooking TV host of some kind. And I only met her once after I had to come back to fix a ramp. And she spent more for her fancy garbage can holder thing because you can't see rubber garbage can there. She told me later on that she spent more to have someone build this wooden garbage can holder than my shed that I sold her. I was like, well, she would have told me I'd have added some more to the shed.
She should have told me ahead of time.
It's like, okay, Solomon experienced some of this stuff. And she had servants to mow her lawn for her because she couldn't get her fingernails green. Someone else to work. Well, I think that's some of the fun of working the flower beds. But she had it all. He had great possessions, Solomon. He had cattle more than anyone else. He had gold. He had silver. He had all the money that was necessary. He outdid the Elon Musk of his day, the first trillionaire. He outdid them all. And in the middle of that, he kept his sanity and he kept his wisdom about it. Now, most people that are rich are dumb. They're just really not that terrible bright. Not all, for sure, not all. But some of them that just get absolutely stupid rich. It's like, where did you fall off that tree at? I mean, you're out of your mind. That was just really, really stupid. They lost their common sense. Solomon had all the money, plus he kept his common sense. Well, that's cool. And what did he discover? In the midst of all of that wisdom that he had, and whatever he wanted, he got. If he wanted the beautiful scenery, he got the beautiful scenery. Down north of Waynesboro, helped on building a house number of years back, and this was one of the first smart houses, as the idea of smart houses were coming around. The lady could call in a number. This was before there were actually smartphones. Now you can just do it with your smartphones and your smart watches that you have. But there she could call in a number whenever she's on her way home from work, and the bath would start bringing in the water level and temperature just the way she wanted it for her. And it was already there for her whenever she would come. And you look in her backyard and there was this looked like a nice little rock garden that was there. And it's like, that's nice and beautiful. And you push a button and all this stuff would fold back up into fake rock waterfalls into a nice big pool. If she wanted it, she could get it. And so she did. And she was a famous doctor, and her husband was also there in the Waynesboro, Chambersburg area. Solomon was like that. If he wanted the views, he got it. Whatever my eye desired to have. Do you look at everything that you want to look at? Or is there some things like, I probably shouldn't see that? Well, he got whatever he wanted to look at. And he got whatever he needed to have, whether he had to work for it or not. And he realized that it's all gone. Okay, so I think that would be great. You come home from a long day of work, and all right, some of the work that I do is kind of dirty. I don't want a bath where I got to sit in my own dirt. Okay, I want a nice shower. And it usually doesn't take very long to turn on the shower and you get the shower experience. But sometimes you walk into some of these showers and they have a dozen nozzles sticking out of the wall of all different kinds. And wow, that'd be a nice experience. And you can find Airbnbs that you can go and find and have that experience. And when you get done and water's shooting at you from all different directions, and then you turn it all off and you're dry and you're not wet anymore, and it's like, it's all over. And that special jet system cost you $25,000. Okay, now what? See, the writer is not saying don't have stuff. He's not saying don't make money. He's not saying don't be productive with your hands. He's not saying don't enjoy life. One of the things that he is saying is that even in the midst of all that enjoyment, it's now what? Because it's gone. Vanity of vanities, puff of puff, breath of breath, it's gone. And then that worrisome that might come along, if I did have all that stuff. All right, so now that most everybody is carrying their own means of communication with them at all time, you're having a conversation and bzzz, I got to take this. Have you been around and had that kind of experience before? Why? This is the boss calling. This is my supervisor back there that we're having trouble getting this house finished up the way we wanted to. This is my wife calling. I better take it. She shouldn't be calling me right now. Something must be wrong. And then worrying if his insurance policy is big enough to cover all of this mountain of stuff that he has. So there is a portion of this whenever he makes mention about this wearisome of the mind. This wearisome of having to worry about even all of this stuff. But he said it just goes with the wind. Okay. So, with things, what about with smarts? We're going to put things aside just for the moment. We're going to put things aside. We're going to put our stuff, our houses, our bison ranch, our drones, our Lear jets. We're going to set all that stuff aside and say, all right, let's not think about that for a moment. Let's think of wisdom. I want people to call me on the phone. You know, we're going to be greater than Dr. Phil. Okay? That may or may not take much, depending on your point of view of philosophy of life. We're going to have people come and ask us about life's difficult questions. That's the next section, okay? So somebody read the next section, verses 12 through 17. Chapter 2, verses 12 to 17. Alrighty. We're going to put material stuff aside. We're going to deal with wisdom and smarts. I got it all, I excelled it all, after all, I'm king. So people do naturally come to me for advice and wisdom and counsel, don't they? Because I'm king. What's higher than a king? You're already at the top. And you know, the tragedy is there's people that work very hard, very diligently, trying really hard to get the next rung up on the ladder, the next rung up on the ladder, and then they get towards the top of the ladder and realize that it's leaning against a wall that they don't want. And if you're dealing with the corporate ladder, as our business world calls it, too often to get to the next rung up, you've got to cut the rung out from the guy who's standing in front of you to be able to get to his position. Okay, and it becomes very much a dog-eat-dog world. Solomon says, I got to the top. I was all the way at the top of the ladder. I had received all that there was to see. I found out that light is more better than darkness. Duh. I don't even have to be at the top of the ladder to figure that one out. I'd rather walk around the light than in the dark. Well, he figured that out. Well, good for his smarts. He figured out that it was better to be smart than stupid. Well, most of the time it is. Wisdom is better than folly. Well, hello. I mean, I wonder how long you had to think about that one before you came up with that conclusion. Maybe he was around people that just didn't have all the fries in their Happy Meal to put together. I'm not really sure. The wise person walks with his eyes open. The fool just blambers around in darkness. But then he started looking. He says, hey, you know what? The guy with all the smarts and the guy that's a few sandwiches short of a picnic, they all have the same end. They die. Well, is it better to be wise or better to be a fool? Their end is the same. What should I do? Oh, by the way, I still think it's better to be wise than stupid, okay? So, yeah, I take Solomon's word for it. He said that, all right? But the reality of the end comes to the end. And as I was driving through Great Falls this past week, early in the morning, I saw 5 homeless people sleeping there on the sidewalk. And then I got a news flash on my phone that a rich man had died. It's like, The rich man had all that he wanted, and he died, leaving it all behind. These poor homeless men don't have anything that they want, or very few that they want. And their end is going to be the same. Now again, he's not proposing to be stupid or to live poor or to just live life because it's just going to all end in death. He's not proposing that you just be melancholy and stupid about life. But he's saying, look, the reality is it all leads to the same thing. We all have the same end. Whether you're a king or whether you're a servant, whether you're rich or whether you're poor, whether you have several master's degrees and PhDs, or whether you had to drop out of kindergarten because it was too hard. We have the same end. Okay? And so is wisdom all that there is to have? Because at the end of the day, you don't remember him anyhow. If I would say the name Ted Williams, how many of you would recognize that name? Okay, what do you know about him? Ball player. Do you remember what his end was? He was one of the most famous baseball players of his time. Okay? People have forgotten about him, but do you remember what his burial was like? Something unique happened about his burial. He wanted to be remembered forever, and it was the idea that perhaps he could come back to life. So at his death, they severed his head from the rest of his body and put it in nitrogen, like that super cold nitrogen, liquid nitrogen stuff. Some of you farmers would be familiar with it, so that it would stay preserved for however many hundreds of years, and perhaps they can bring him back to life again. And you guys don't even know who Ted Williams is. Got one of his bats. All right. Ted Turner. If you were around the southern end, around Atlanta, he was very wealthy, media mogul, and owned the Atlanta Braves and big bison ranch, one of the largest bison ranches in the nation he owns, and he died here a couple weeks ago. Maybe it'd be a couple months now, and he's gone. And when I said, do you know Ted Turner, most of you are like, Well, it's because it was before your time, or he lived in an area where you weren't. It's okay that you didn't know. But he's leaving it all behind. I'd like to have his bison ranch. I know the general vicinity of where it's at. Could somebody connect me? Somebody with more smarts or whatever else. Maybe you can hack into some for a computer program or feed and say, hey, I've got somebody that can manage your bison ranch at least for the next 30 years. And by the way, I'm smart enough to know the difference between a man and a woman, so I can do it better than some of the other people that come out there that don't know the difference with herdsmen. But after a bit, I'll turn 80 and I'll be gone, because I can't run away from the bull bison, and he took me out. Solomon experienced all of this and realized that even at the end of it, and just thinking about all of it became grievous to him. It was a burden just thinking about all of it. All right, work. Some of us like to work. Yeah, why stop at 8 hours a day? I mean, that's kind of a little bit measly. Let's go to double digits anyway. Let's do 15 hours a day. Absolutely. Why not? Why not? My son-in-law is part of a helicopter application company out in western Illinois right now, and they average around 90 hours a week trying to get all the corn and the soybeans sprayed. Last year they did about 350,000 acres with the company that he's working for. Let's try hard work. After all, a little sweat didn't hurt nobody too much, right? Well, Solomon writes about the hard work. Let's finish reading. Let's read the rest of the chapter. I want someone to read verses 18 through 23, and then someone else 24 through 26. So 18 to 23, and then we'll finish up kind of the conclusion part of that 24 to the end of the chapter. So how many days did God say that we should work? How many?
6.
6. How many do most Americans work? 5. Why? He says God had created us to work, and He actually gave Adam a job before He gave Adam a wife. Okay, newsflash, ladies, make sure your guy has a job before he gets you. All right? I think there's a pattern there. It should be good that you have a job. You know how to have a job and hold down a job and to be able to work well before you start figuring out if you should have another lady to live life with you. Okay? So he worked hard. And it says that he even burned some of the midnight oil. He even worked into the night. What was the point of my toil into the night? I don't know if he had halogen lights or LEDs or just candle lights of that day. I really have no idea. But he had lights. And he worked at night. He worked hard. And he says, wait a minute. I work hard. I get this bison ranch, and I'm going to leave it to Wilmer. How do I know? So if I could get my wishes and I could get Ted Turner's ranch to manage, I don't even need to own it. Just let me manage it, okay? How does Ted know that he's going to turn it over to me? Am I going to take care of it as good as he did? By the way, he didn't do much work by himself, okay? He wasn't a hard-working man. What do you do with that? So I work, I have a farm, I have a business, I have 2 farms, and then I'm going to leave it to my boys and my grandsons. Well, what if they don't work it the same way I do? And this became a wearisome. So I'm working for what? Okay? And he comes to that conclusion that even with all this work, even all that he amasses through the hard work of his hands, putting together the 60 hours, the 80 hours, the 90 hours a week, to get it all done, and it's gone, and he has to leave it to somebody else, and, well, how do I know they're going to take care of it like I did? You talk about your old car you have. You still have it and restore it? Yeah. No? Some of these guys get their old cars and they want to restore it. And man, I'm going to have to sell it whenever I'm on my nursing home bed because I know no one's going to take care of it as good as I did. Right? Yeah, we meet those people from time to time. And Solomon says, yeah, what am I going to do with my old restored car? All of this work that I had, I can't turn it over to my to my nephew. I turn this over to my nephew, he's just a loser anyhow. I ain't going to do that. Then what? Okay? What if I leave it to someone else who does not take care of it as much as I do? Even whenever he worked into the night, there was no rest for the soul. There was no time to just sit back and relax just a little bit. And there's nothing better than to eat, drink, and be merry. Now, where do we hear that phrase at? Let's eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die. Okay, well, we have those lepers in the day of near Elisha's time, okay, that found all that spoil out there, and they said, well, we eat all this, and those guys in the city's going to, we can't do that. Let's share it. And so he found out about sharing it a little bit. That rich farmer in Jesus' day that Jesus told the story about, whether it was actually happening or Jesus was telling the story. You know that man that tore down his old barns and built bigger and says, now eat, drink, and be merry? And God says, you fool, you don't know when you're going to die. And Solomon says, so I work and I work hard and I leave it to someone else who might not take care of it as good as I do. It's gone. Well, it just feels good to work a little while, get some calluses on, and if you're not wearing gloves, you need to have about a dozen splinters you got to pull out whenever you're dealing with old houses. Then what? It's nothing better. It just feels good to work hard. And it does, in my opinion. It feels good to hang up the chalkboard and get out there and swing a hammer and get some hard work done. I enjoy doing that. But I saw that it was from the hand of God. He's not saying don't work hard because hard work is from the hand of God. That's what it says in verse 24. The idea, why should I work? Well, because God told you to. So work. And hard work is from the hand of God. And I'm not here to judge you somehow if you have an office job, okay? That you get calluses on your fingertips from punching the keyboard. I'm not judging you for that, all right? Work hard because it comes from God. And there's a certain joy that comes about it, but there's also a certain amount of sorrow. Well, I just want a job where I never have to worry about anything. I just want a job where I don't have to fret about anything. Okay, what would that job be? What would that be?
There ain't one.
Don't say your mother. Huh, mothers? What? I'm just a stay-at-home mom. Oh no, you're not just a stay-at-home mom. Somebody that works hard and has plenty to worry about, okay? Has plenty to keep herself occupied and keep busy with, especially as the little ones start to come along. The hard work that's from the hand of God and that God gives it to us. And this is something that pleases God. It pleases God, but even the hard work is, and it's all gone. What are your thoughts? I don't want us to think of this as being doldrums, because it's not doldrums. It's a man who was trying to find to try to find joy and meaning in life, and he found out that even after having it all, it's gone. It just goes away. So, do you know what? Hey, we're going out to Texas Roadhouse for a steak, and I double dare you to get that porterhouse down, and I'll pay for it, because I don't think you can get her done. Okay, fine, enjoy it. Take that bet on with your friends. I don't care. And after a bit, you're going to just, remember whenever I did that and you said I couldn't do it? Okay, you'll have that story to tell for a while. Great, fun, be my guest. Enjoy life, but recognize that life is short. It's a vapor, okay? It's a puff and it's all over with. So seek to enjoy life, and we'll look about how some of that happens as the week goes on. And tomorrow we'll look at some of these different times that God gives to us here around the world. Any last comments? Again, read through Ecclesiastes. I hope that you don't read it as, again, some old geezer sitting in his rocking chair just talking about how life is just terrible and people are crazy, okay? I don't want you to think of it that way, because that's not what the writer was intending. The writer was saying, I got it all, I got everything that I wanted, everything that I needed, and then some, and realized that all of the stuff just didn't satisfy, and it soon goes away anyhow, okay? And so how can we have a good quality life? Lord bless you, really good. And read through Ecclesiastes, and let's talk about it some more tomorrow. God bless you.